What's going on? This is your King of the Night, Vincent Valentine EX Turk with another Final Fantasy segment. Final Fantasy 15 again. Let me lower the music down. There it goes. Now it's equal to my voice. Now this is another Final Fantasy 15 prediction right here, and I know, like every good, like they say, all good things must come to an end. So, when's the year that's going to be the end of Final Fantasy 15? Now, what I mean by the end is that the games, that does not mean that they're not going to make any more, copies for people who want to play Final Fantasy 15. What I mean by when the game is about to, what I mean by when the game's about to end, when the game's about to end, I mean stuff like, and when it starts to lose its popularity. I mean, it already kind of stopped a little bit, but you know what I'm saying, where they're not making any more new things for it. Just like right now, they're not going to make any new things for Final Fantasy 13, except maybe Lightning DLC costumes and new Dissidia Arcade. But, or a Caius DLC character, hopeful. I said hopeful. I don't want people to twist my words and say I'm spreading rumors, because I don't spread rumors. So, the point is, yes, Final Fantasy 15 is going to probably end. I predict about next year, at least. But it'd be like late next year, because they're still making DLC for it. I think they're going to finish making DLC episodes of all the popular and main characters or special, also specials with special cutscenes too. So we're gonna be probably seeing some more cutscenes that they should have added the game earlier on as well. So if they're gonna be working on this all summer, they're also gonna be working on it next year until 2018. Meaning 2018. Now, I could be wrong. I think maybe they could be doing this in the summer, then early in August and September, and continuing to make DLC for Final Fantasy 15. But they're also trying to push more of Final Fantasy 14 by making expansion packs. So this game's gonna have dying battery a lot sooner than Final Fantasy 14, and that's because Final Fantasy 14 is an MMO. And because it's a social MMO with the social interaction, that can keep going on for a long time, so they can keep making more for 14. So 14's not going to die off for at least about, 3 more years. But Final Fantasy 15's life is short due to the fact it's a story-based Final Fantasy game. And as much as I love Final Fantasy 15, they already made the compilation as it is. We already have A King's Tale as the beginning of Final Fantasy 15. We got King's Glaive, the CGI movie that's pretty much their Avid Children, but happened before the game events. And then you have Brotherhood, the anime, where all the events were in between the game, where you got to know the backstories of all the main brother characters. So, what this means is that, from what I'm trying to predict, again, don't quote me, I'm not trying here to start no rumors. I'm not trying to start no rumors within the Final Fantasy community. I'm actually being legit with this. But it looks like we could be seeing the end of Final Fantasy 15 next year, probably after September. And if they push a little bit more, maybe after October, hopefully. Because all the DLC would be made, all the backstory would be filled. The compilation's already been made before the game even came out. Which, my prediction with that, my theory with this, which is also going to be listed as a theory, is that all the Final Fantasy Versus 13 stuff were split into parts. Like, if you looked at King's Glaive, it was exactly that iconic scene where you see Idolus challenging King Regis at the Peace Treaty Summit and King's Glaive, which was an iconic moment. And then Final Fantasy 15 has part 2 of Versus 13. Then they started going off on a tangent, because this is no longer Versus 13, but I can see where they split out in many parts. I can see how they did it. Now, the anime Brotherhood is brand new, and so is the Double Dragon gameplay No Double Dragon gameplay, King's Tale, because it plays just like Double Dragon. If you haven't played Double Dragon, I'll go check it out. If you can afford the NES cartridge, if you can't, I'd go on Nintendo eShop if you have a Wii or Wii U. But that's not the point here. The point I'm trying to say is that this game has an expiration date for any more new stuff to come in. I think after October, which is the latest next year, I think they'll stop making stuff for Final Fantasy 15. And by that, what I mean by that is the popularity and hype for Final Fantasy 15 will die off, just like 13 has. Doesn't mean the game won't be sold. People love Final Fantasy 15, despite the Chapter 13 fail. Besides that, or the fact that they changed this from Versus 13 to 15, or other things, or it copied off other things. Whatever your beef with 15 is, you still liked it, you still played it, you bought the game at launch, and it was a good game, and it did what it needed to do, even with the short story, and sold very well. But I think this might be overshadowed by the Final Fantasy VII remake, and my theory is that the Final Fantasy 15 hype trend will end probably at least, and I said latest not October, but more likely the end of September of next year, of next school year, I should say, because 2018 don't begin until the end of December, because New Year's Eve and stuff like that. But my theory is on this particular thing is the reason why it's going to end is that Final Fantasy 16 will be in development. So that people are looking forward to that, and yes, Final Fantasy 16 originally was a Fabula Crystallia Novia game, just like 15 was. Angie's philosophy was supposed to take, place in the farther future of Versus. Now, at least that's what I thought. But now it's going to be different, of course. It's going to be its own universe, just like 15 is. So if they're in development, which I'm pretty sure Square Enix works on the games real early, so if they're probably in development of that, but also the thing people are hyped about that Tetsuno Normal hopefully finishes by next year is the Final Fantasy VII remake and the Kingdom Hearts 3, which people will be hyped about both those games. In fact, the Final Fantasy VII remake is probably going to have a longer life battery than 15. I say at least about people would play Final Fantasy VII remake about at least 3 years, 4 if pushing it. This game would have had a lot longer life battery if they would have done things right, like the mess they did with Chapter 13. If the thing that the sour taste in people's mouths, Chapter 13 never happened, this would have had more replay value. Don't get me wrong, I still replay like crazy. In fact, I put so much hours on this. I got videos on streams of this all over my channel, and fan theory videos, and so much lore, and gameplay videos, DLC, and all that good stuff that everybody likes. But I don't think that, because of the mistake that they made. One mistake can cost you in the gaming industry, and that's why it's so much pressure to make good video games. It's a huge pressure, and I'm not just saying make it like every other generic game out there, but don't take out anything that your fans want. Final Fantasy is more fan oriented than trying to reach a mainstream audience. And I think they were trying to reach a mainstream audience, was really good and stuff like that. I like the car, it's a refreshing step to the airship, but I think they could have had a complete story. And the Westerners would like that even a lot more if they would have the complete story, and at least Chapter 13 without having to make us wait for more cutscenes and more episodes to explain everything that happened in Versus 13. Now, with that said, that's why it's got a shorter, life battery. Meaning that Final Fantasy 15 will end at least next year in September after all the DLC content has been released. Now, they might make an Ultimate Edition, and people might get hyped about an Ultimate Edition, or maybe a PC Edition, because they always do a PC Edition a year after the original game has come out. As you can see, that Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Saga is now on PC and Steam now. They always release Final Fantasy games on Steam real late. Unless it's Mobius, of course, because Mobius is exclusive, PC exclusive. But that's not the point. That's not here and there. I'm not here to talk about that right now. I'm just saying that, things that are coming out next year will be the Kingdom Hearts 3, possibly. I'd say Final Fantasy VII Remake first, because Tetsuo Nomura said it was already kind of completed. He wanted to show it off, and he didn't get to show it off. So from what he says, and I'm going by what Tetsuo Nomura says in the article, that it's already complete. So the Final Fantasy VII Remake will probably come out first, like probably in December, or probably because he said 2018. At least that's what he said. Of course, they can always push it back, or they can push it forwards, which I hope it's forward. I wouldn't mind actually going out and buying this Black Friday after Thanksgiving, because after Thanksgiving, getting fat off food and being a fat junkie of Thanksgiving food, I think I might want to stay and play video games. So it would be perfectly if they could release the Final Fantasy VII Remake during Black Friday. With that said, I would save up because I'm planning to get the Collector's Edition, because Final Fantasy VII is still my favorite, on the fact that it was the first Final Fantasy I actually got into. But the point is, since the Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming out, people are going to be hyped on that, and I'm predicting there's at least 3 to 4 years of life before the Final Fantasy VII Remake hype ends. Now, it'll last longer because it's a remake of a classic that everybody already loves. It's going to play like Final Fantasy 15, but also appeal to the classic players by giving it an ATB bar. So you'll be playing pretty much Kingdom Hearts gameplay with Final Fantasy 7 overtones, with a high definition of one of the best RPG games of all times. Period. So with that, and I can vouch for that, because Final Fantasy 7 was my first. It got me hooked. It was my gateway drug to other Final Fantasies. Obviously, if you see my Vincent Valentine cosplay, enough says about how much I love Final Fantasy 7. But nonetheless, and then when Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out, I'm pretty sure that's probably going to come out in the same year, probably different months. That's probably going to have the same amount of, of hype life. It's going to have the same amount of hype life, because Kingdom Hearts 3 is another game every Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts fan or gamers been waiting for a long time. Just like how Versus 13 became 15 and they finally released it, even though it's Final Fantasy 15 now. There's actually a pattern. They're releasing the games that we thought were never going to happen. So that's why these games are pressured to do well. And then the Final Fantasy VII Remake, a long-awaited remake that everybody wanted for a long time, and everything we did that was deserved to have for being a good fan base we are. So that's, the Kingdom Hearts 3. So the Versus 13 is technically over. And not just because it's 15 no more. It's just because next thing to be hyped about is the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And then next will be the Kingdom Hearts 3, which those two had 3 years of hype life left due to the fact they're games everybody wanted, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to make the same mistakes on 15, because Tetsuo Nomura is the one who's directing Final Fantasy VII Remake and Kingdom Hearts 3. Even though he's too much of a perfectionist, it would actually turn out really good. So, all in all, I think Final Fantasy 15's hype life will end by next year, during October or November. And may the crystal, tell me what your thoughts and comments, and may the crystal be with you.